What's happening in Sudan is one of the deadliest and least reported crises in the world right now. We are witnessing mass atrocities, ethnic cleansing, and what experts say amounts to genocide. And foreign powers, including the United Arab Emirates, are fueling it. So let's talk about what is happening, who's responsible, and why the world is silent. As always, welcome to the Tungsten Wire. Please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So let's begin with how the war started. Sudan's civil war began in April 2023. It's a power struggle between two former allies who once ran the country together after a military coup in 2021. On one side is the Sudanese Armed Forces, the national military led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. On the other side is the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, a paramilitary group led by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, widely known as Hemedti. And to be clear, the RSF didn't appear out of nowhere. It evolved from the Janjaweed militias, who were responsible for genocide in Darfur in the 2000s. They were armed by the former regime and unleashed on non-Arab African communities in Darfur. Today, the same fighters and the same tactics are being used again. So let's talk about what's happening right now. Today, the RSF has captured large parts of Sudan, including the capital Khartoum and most of Darfur. The most alarming turning point came when the RSF seized Al-Fashir, the last major city in Darfur, not under their control after a brutal 18-month siege. What followed were mass killings, executions, sexual violence, torture, and entire neighborhoods being wiped out. There are reports that the abuses women faced at the hands of the RSF is so brutal that they commit suicide rather than face the atrocities waiting for them. Civilians, especially non-Arab ethnic groups like the Masalit, are being targeted because of who they are. Human rights organizations, genocide scholars, and survivors all say the patterns of violence meets the definition of genocide. Ethnic cleansing, mass graves, systemic rape, burning villages, and the intentional starvation of communities. These are not random acts of war. They are coordinated, targeted, and meant to erase a people. Now, there's a coordinated effort among right-wing and far-right voices to falsely frame what's happening in Sudan as a genocide of Christians. That is simply not true. It is not a religious conflict. The RSF is not Islamist. They've actually fought Islamist groups and jailed their leaders. This genocide is about power and Sudan's gold, not faith. Around 97% of those being slaughtered by the RSF are Muslims, but that doesn't fit the narrative some want. So they distort the reality to create a false story of Christian victimhood, which, if you ask me, is pathetic. This is ethnic cleansing and a resource-driven genocide, not a war of religion. Mislabeling it is not only wrong, it's propaganda and hijacks what is actually happening. Now, let's talk about the UAE's role and why they're involved. One of the most important and least discussed elements of this war is foreign funding. Multiple UN reports, leaked documents, and investigative journalism have traced weapons, ammunition, and money flowing to the RSF from the United Arab Emirates. Many of these weapons can be traced back to the UK, Canada, and other countries, such as Israel. Now, why would the UAE support a paramilitary group accused of genocide? There are three major reasons. The first, gold, money, and smuggling. The RSF controls most of Sudan's gold mines. Gold is smuggled to the UAE, refined there, and enters global markets. Sudan's gold helps fund the RSF's war, and the UAE profits from being the hub that launders it into the global economy. Backing the RSF protects that supply chain. Secondly, it also helps them expand regional power. The UAE wants influence across the Red Sea region, the Sahel, and North Africa. By supporting the RSF, the UAE gains a loyal proxy force, similar to what Iraq has with Hezbollah or what Russia has with the Wagner-type militias. It gives the UAE military leverage far beyond its borders. And the last reason is control of Red Sea access. You see, Sudan is strategically located on the Red Sea, one of the most important trade and shipping routes in the world. The UAE wants ports, military presence, and infrastructure control along this route. If the RSF wins, the UAE would have a friendly client regime controlling that coastline. In short, gold, power, and ports. That's why the UAE is backing a group accused of genocide. And this has led to a catastrophic humanitarian collapse. The consequences are devastating. Sudan is now the largest displacement crisis on earth. Over 14 million people have been forced from their homes. Millions are starving, with many areas on the brink of famine. Hospitals have been destroyed or taken over by fighters. Disease outbreaks are spreading, and aid is being blocked. Make no mistake, entire communities are being erased, not just by bullets, but by starvation, sexual violence, and forced displacement. Now, you might be asking why the world isn't intervening. Now, unlike Ukraine or Gaza, Sudan isn't politically useful to Western powers right now. There's no geopolitical incentive to intervene, no major economic cost for ignoring it, and no global media pressure forcing action. And with the UAE involved, a wealthy US and European ally, many governments are avoiding confrontation. Silence is the policy, indifference is the outcome, and Sudanese civilians are paying the price. Sudan is facing a genocide funded and armed by foreign powers, and ignored by most of the world. If this continues, Sudan could fracture entirely, and millions more lives could be lost. The world woke up too late in Rwanda, too late in Bosnia, too late in Darfur the first time, too late in Myanmar, way too late in Gaza, which is still ongoing. We cannot let it happen again. We need to speak up, we need to mobilize, and we need to march for Sudan, just as we've marched for other nations and other oppressed peoples. Now, for those of us in the West, that means pressuring our governments to sanction the UAE, cut economic ties, and stop sending arms to countries that is fueling a genocide. When we arm the UAE arms genocide in Africa. We cannot allow complicity in genocide to be our legacy, and we cannot let the genocide in Sudan become just another tragedy that the world ignores and only acknowledges after too many have already been killed.